I need to tell you about what happened in the Cascade Mountain Range between June and September of 2019. 14 people vanished from the Pacific Crest Trail in a span of 93 days. Not got lost, vanished. And every single one of them heard the same thing right before they disappeared. The first incident report came in on June 8th at 11:47 p.m. A hiker named Marcus Chen called 911 from somewhere near mile marker 2294, absolutely hysterical. The dispatch recording, which I've listened to maybe 40 times now, captured him screaming about a whistling sound moving through the trees. Not wind, not a bird, a deliberate ascending three-note pattern that he said made his teeth ache. The call cut off mid-sentence. Search and rescue found his phone 17 feet up in a pine tree the next morning, along with his boots. Just the boots, still laced. The surrounding area showed no footprints, no signs of struggle, and his GPS tracker showed he'd been stationary for 6 minutes before the call disconnected. They found 3 other hikers' belongings within a 2-mile radius over the next week, backpacks opened and contents scattered in perfect circles 12 feet in diameter. Sleeping bags unzipped from the inside, and in every case, the boots remained. Always the boots. I got involved because my sister Julia was number 7. She'd been through hiking the PCT with her boyfriend Derek, and they'd camped at Spectacle Lake on July 19th. Derek survived, barely. He won't talk about most of it, but he let me record one conversation about that night, and I'm going to share parts of it because people need to understand what we're dealing with. It started around 2 a.m., Derek told me, hands shaking so badly he could barely hold his coffee. This whistling, coming from maybe a quarter mile into the woods, 3 notes, always the same pattern, low, middle, high, over and over. Julia woke up first and grabbed my arm. She said, "Do you hear that?" And I did, crystal clear, even though there was no wind that night, not even a fucking breeze. He said they stayed in their tent for maybe 20 minutes listening. The whistling never got closer, never got farther away, just constant, like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Then Julia unzipped the tent. I tried to stop her, Derek said, and this is where he started crying. I grabbed her sleeping bag, but she stepped out of it, left her boots right there beside mine, and she walked into the trees in her bare feet. I followed her for maybe 30 seconds, screaming her name, and then the whistling just stopped. Complete silence. And Julia was gone. I mean, gone. I had a flashlight right on her back, and between one step and the next, she wasn't there anymore. Search and rescue combed 70 square miles, infrared helicopters, canine units, the whole operation. They found her sleeping bag and her boots, but not a single trace of Julia herself. No blood, no clothing fibers, no footprints past the first few steps from the tent. The official report listed her as lost/presumed deceased, but one of the rangers told me off the record that they'd seen something in the thermal imaging that didn't make sense. A heat signature 30 feet off the ground, moving horizontally through the canopy at roughly 40 miles per hour. It wasn't until August that someone found the pattern. A data analyst named Sarah Kim, who'd been tracking the disappearances, noticed that every single incident occurred within a 3-mile radius of old-growth pine forests, and every victim's last known location formed a near-perfect spiral when plotted on a map. The spiral covered approximately 847 square miles and was centered on an area locals call the Cathedral Grove, a stand of 200-year-old ponderosa pines that the National Forest Service had designated as protected wilderness. I drove out there in early September with Derek and 2 other families who'd lost people. We weren't supposed to be there, but at that point we didn't give a shit about regulations. The Forest Service had closed the entire area to hikers, citing geological instability, which was obvious bullshit since there'd been no seismic activity reported in the region for 18 months. We found the Cathedral Grove just before sunset. 93 trees, all of them perfectly uniform in height. I measured 3 of them myself, and each one was exactly 174 feet tall. The bark on every tree had these strange marks carved into them, spiral patterns that looked almost like writing, but in no language any of us recognized. Derek walked up to one of the trees and put his hand against it. "It's vibrating," he said, and he was right. All 93 trees were vibrating at a frequency you could feel but barely hear, a low hum that made your sinuses ache if you stood there too long. Then the whistling started. Same 3 notes, low, middle, high, coming from the center of the grove, where the trees formed a natural circle maybe 60 feet across. We all heard it, 5 witnesses. I started recording on my phone, and you can hear it clearly in the video, that ascending pattern playing on repeat every 7 seconds. Derek started walking towards it. So did Emma Voss, whose husband had vanished in July. I grabbed them both, physically pulled them back to the cars, because I could see in their eyes they were gone. They weren't making a choice. They were being called. We got the hell out of there, and I sent the recording to 3 different acoustic analysis labs. Every single one confirmed the same thing. The sound wasn't natural. The frequency pattern included harmonics that shouldn't be possible without digital synthesis, and the waveform showed mathematical properties that one researcher described as geometrically hostile to human neurology. The Forest Service demolished the Cathedral Grove on September 28th. No announcement, no explanation. They went in with crews and cut down all 93 trees, ground the stumps, and removed every trace that the grove had existed. I know because I went back. The entire area is just bare earth now, surrounded by chain-link fencing and no trespassing signs. But I talked to one of the contractors who'd worked the site, and he told me something that still keeps me up at night. "We cut down the first tree," he said, "and inside the trunk there were these chambers, hollow spaces about 6 feet tall and 2 feet wide, perfectly smooth. And in 4 of the trees we cut, those chambers weren't empty." He wouldn't tell me what was inside them. He said he'd signed an NDA and that people from some federal agency he'd never heard of had confiscated all the photographs. But he did tell me that they stopped cutting after the 4th tree, brought in specialists with hazmat suits, and cleared everyone else off the site. 14 people vanished. 14. And the official Forest Service statement just said there'd been a series of unfortunate accidents on the PCT that summer, and that improved trail markers would prevent future incidents. I've been documenting everything I can find: police reports, witness statements, satellite imagery of the Cathedral Grove before they destroyed it. I've got 17 recorded interviews with people who heard the whistling and survived because someone physically stopped them from walking towards it. Every single one of them describes the same sensation, an overwhelming certainty that they needed to go to the source of the sound, that something was waiting for them there, and that it knew their name. Derek moved to Portland 2 months ago and won't return my calls. Emma Voss is in psychiatric care. Most of the other families have stopped looking for answers because the answers don't make sense, and not making sense is worse than not knowing. But I'm still looking. I have to be. Because Julia is still out there somewhere. I know she is. Maybe not in our world anymore, maybe not in any form we'd recognize, but somewhere. And I think whatever took her is still in those mountains. The trees are gone, but the land remembers. If you're listening to this and you've heard whistling in the woods, 3 notes, ascending pattern, makes your teeth hurt, don't walk towards it. Don't investigate. Run. And if someone you're with starts walking towards it, grab them and don't let go. I'll post updates as I find them. There's more to this story. I just need to find the people who are willing to talk.